What's going on, everyone? Boone here from PremiumBeat.com. Today I want to show you 4 tips you can use to help you perfectly position assets within Adobe After Effects. Let's get started. So if you're relatively new to Adobe After Effects, you might not feel completely comfortable with the program. You can quickly get lost if you don't know the tips and tricks of working in the program, and it can be particularly frustrating if you don't know how to properly control layers and assets within the composition panel. So perhaps you're having trouble getting a graphic exactly where you want it. Let's say you want to center it, or you want to align several elements to a text layer, or you just want to position things very precisely for a project. These 4 tips are going to help you figure out just how to do that. Okay, when we talk about working with assets in Adobe After Effects, the first thing we want to talk about are anchor points. Now an anchor point, if I select this element here, we can see our anchor point is right over here. Now the anchor point is also called the transformation point or the transformation center, and there's a good reason that it's called that, because any of the transform attributes, if you change any of them, it's going to change them from this as the center point. So for instance, if we rotate this right now, it's going to rotate with our anchor point as our center point, which might not be what we want. Or if we scale it, if we mess with any of our attributes here, it's going to go from our transformation center or our anchor point. Now let's say we want to center this layer in the center of our composition. Well, we could, for instance, go to Layer, Transform, and then we can do Center in View. But unfortunately, because of that anchor point, it's gonna center the anchor point and not this layer. So one way around this is we want to put that anchor point in the middle of our asset here. So one way we can do that is grab our anchor point tool, which is also called the pan behind tool. I'm going to select this, and that allows us to grab the anchor point and we can move it here. And you could eyeball this, but we want this to be perfectly centered. So one way we can do that is if I hold the command key, it's going to automatically snap to the X and Y, and it's going to allow me to put it right in the middle. Now I'm going to undo that to show you one other quick tip. If you go to Layer, Transform, there's also a center anchor point in layer content command here, which is hugely helpful. So I can do that, and now our anchor point is in the middle. And now if I go to Layer, Transform, Center in View, it's going to put that layer dead center. And now if I want to rotate this layer, it's going to rotate from the center. This is also helpful with, for instance, I have a text layer here, and with text layers you almost always have the anchor point in the bottom left hand side here. And if we wanted to rotate this, it's going to rotate from that anchor point. So this is a good quick tip. You can right click, control click, go to transform, and then quickly center the anchor point in that layer, and now we can rotate our text on that anchor point. So again, first tip, and most important in my opinion, is the anchor point. Very important to understand how these work. Another one of my favorite tips in Adobe After Effects in regards to positioning assets is the position dialog box. So if I go and I select a layer here, let's say I want to have these equally spaced, one in the upper left hand, one in the upper right hand, one in the bottom right hand, one in the bottom left hand. So to quickly do this, I can select one element and then go to Layer, Transform, Position, and you'll see here the keyboard shortcut is Shift Command P. So I'm going to select that. That brings up this position dialog box where we can position our asset with a variety of different units. And I like to do percentage of composition. So I know I want to have these equally spaced, so I can get pretty precise with the percentage of composition. So if I select here, then I can type in my percentages, 25% on the x-axis, 25% on the y-axis, and that puts us right there. So now we can do this. I'm going to use keyboard shortcut Shift Command P and go back to composition, and now we'll do 25% on the x-axis and we'll do 75% on the y. And that puts us in the bottom here. Grab this one, Shift Command P, percentage of composition, let's do 75% x, whoops, and 75% Y. Select OK. And then finally, Shift Command P. And I get this wrong each time. 75 and 25, correct? There we go. And there you have it. Using this position dialog box, we've perfectly put these exactly where we want them. And if I wanted to do percentage of source or go by millimeters or inches, it's pretty precise. So if you have a client that's specifying a very, very specific area of the composition, you're going to be able to hit that mark every time with this tip. So manually positioning your assets with the position dialog box can be a bit tedious. So we also have some other great tools to utilize, and that includes grids, guides, and rulers. So if you go up here to the view drop-down menu, you'll see we have a couple of different options here. There's also a button down here in the composition panel for a shortcut for the choose grid and guide options. We select that. You're going to see we have a action safe and title safe that we can select here if we are so inclined. We have a proportional grid that we can work with. And then we have these three other options here, grid, guides, and rulers. So let me turn off this proportional grid. And let's take a look at these tools here. First, we have grid, which is really great. If we want to work in a perfect proportional setup here, we can use this proportional grid. And if you go to view, you see I have snap to grid selected. I can either turn this off and my assets will kind of float around and I can position it manually, or I can have it snap to my grid, which is really great. It'll snap to every specific grid here. And if I want, I can modify this grid in preferences under grids and guides. I can go here and under the grid section, I can completely customize this grid along with the color, the style. I can change the lines to dash lines or dots, and I can change quite a bit. So I'll leave this as the default here, and let me turn this back off, and now we'll take a look at guides. And to get guides, I need to turn on my rulers here. When I turn on rulers, I have my vertical and horizontal rulers running along the composition panel here. And you see my cursor changes as I go over the ruler. And as I grab and pull down, I'm going to see a guide become available here. And I can grab vertically as well and have a guide. And now, just as with grids, I need to select snap to guides. And now I can grab my asset and it's going to snap straight to those guides. And we can snap it to the anchor point. We can snap however we want. This is really quite helpful. But one thing, if you're working with the asset and you're trying to move the asset around, sometimes you might accidentally grab that guide. So to prevent that, you can select lock guides, and then I'll make it to where you cannot move your guide once you place it, which can be very helpful. And if you want to quickly get rid of those guides, you can do clear guides, or you can just turn off the show guides and you won't see them anymore. We'll turn off show rulers. And again, you can customize those guides. Let's say that we don't want those guides to be the same color as our element because they were red. We could go in here and change the color and again, change the style to however we want. Change that back to dash lines. Again, these tools are extremely helpful. Last but not least, I want to show you the Align panel. Now the Align panel, in my opinion, is one of the most important panels. You should always have it open. If you're not familiar with it, go to Window, select Align. And if you look over here, you can see it's just a group of buttons that allow you a few different align and distribute commands. Now we can align layers to our composition, or we can align them to another selection. So let me show you how this tool is great. It allows us to quickly move assets around our composition very quickly, much faster than manual positioning, much faster than with grids and guides. So I have actually 4 stars here. And let's say I want these to be aligned to the vertical center, and I want them to be side by side, distributed evenly. So I can quickly grab these and then go up to align, make sure it's set to composition because I want these to all align to the vertical center. And now I'm going to grab the left star here and I'm going to align this to the horizontal left of the composition. I'm going to grab another one here, align this one to the right, and now select all 4. And I can distribute these now. Horizontal center distribution. As soon as I click that, and now voila, I have all of my assets here aligned perfectly. Now again, this is very fast. These commands, you can move things around very fast when you get used to using the align and distribute commands. Let me just show you another quick way. If you're aligning to a selection, so as opposed to aligning to the composition, let me just show you really quickly. align layers to selection. If I now do my vertical center alignment option here, it's going to align these based on the average between the lowest star here and the highest star. So it's going to align all of our assets kind of right here because that's the vertical center. It's taking this is the top and this is the bottom, so it's going to take the center of that. And the same thing, if we distribute these layers, it's going to distribute it based on how our two outer layers are positioned. So if let me just move one or two of these real quick to show you what I'm talking about. So to distribute these now, if I do horizontal center, it's doing the horizontal center, and these two outer ones did not move. So again, play around with this tool. You should always have it open. It's very, very helpful. Probably the best tip out of these 4. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and be sure to check out PremiumBeat for high quality, royalty-free music and sound effects for all of your media and video projects.